Whenever you visit the hospital, there is always someone that will attend to you before you ever meet the doctor, and that is the nurse. Now, what is your idea of who a nurse is, and what do nurses do? I don't even know what your idea is, because for me, nurses are those people who wear white. We always see them in the hospital. Once you get into the hospital, there are usually nurses all around the places, and they are the ones you're going to ask questions. They are either on white, they are either on blue, they are either on red, they are on different colors. If you visit different hospitals, you see nurses wearing different colors of uniform. Oh my goodness, welcome to my podcast. My goodness gracious Lord, it's really going to be an amazing podcast. This series is going to be a different thing altogether. It's a different series altogether. I am Oma, your very sweetheart on radio, TV, and of course on podcasts. And of course, welcome to my podcast here. We talk about everything as my eyes see and witness as a journalist. So this particular series, like I said, it's going to be a very, very, very interesting series. Make sure you don't miss any of the episodes because it's so loaded. So I was talking about nurses. Yeah, if you go to the hospital, if you visit any hospital in Nigeria, we are all conversant with the attitude of nurses in Nigeria. And whenever you visit any hospital in Nigeria and you meet a nurse that treats you well, you meet a nurse that smiles at you, a nurse that knows that you're actually feeling pains. There's a way we look at this nurse. We kind of cherish this nurse. We kind of love this nurse because I think to a large extent, we are so used to meeting nurses that are so nasty, nurses that are so insensitive, nurses that are so I don't know how to explain it. I've heard a lot of people, family members, friends, even people that I don't know, complain of the attitude of nurses in different Nigerian hospitals. And when you visit a public hospital, a general hospital, or a federal medical center, I think to a large extent, nurses in those places, they seem to be worse or even terrible. Now, as you listen to this podcast, I'd like to know what's your experience about nurses. Like, what do you think? What's your experience about nurses? But, of course, you all know, recently we celebrated Nursing Week. And the theme for this year's Nursing Week is nurses make a difference anytime, anywhere, always. Yes, it's really important that we note that nurses makes a difference. But why is Nurses Week important? Why do we even celebrate Nurses Week? Okay, in 1954, the first National Nurses Week was observed in the month of October to honor the 100th anniversary of Florence Nightingale's mission to Crimea. Of course, we all know the story of Florence Nightingale. Peradventure, you've not heard about the story. Before the end of this series, I'm going to tell you the story of Nightingale. 20 years later, President Nixon created a week in February 1974 to acknowledge the nursing profession. In 1978, New Jersey's Governor Brandon Bryan declared May 6 as National Nurses Day. In 1981, there was an assassination attempt on President Reagan. He received care from a team of nurses who dislodged a bullet inches from his heart. After his recovery, Reagan tracked down the nurses and sent them words of encouragement and thank you notes. In 1982, Ronald Reagan signed an executive order officially declaring May 6 as the National Recognition Day for Nurses. A few years later, in 1990, the American Nurses Association Board of Directors expanded this day to cover a full week until May 12, which had been known as International Nurses Day since 1965. Now, that's really a brief history of the celebration of Nurses Week and, of course, the Nurses Day internationally. Now, in Nigeria is not left behind. Of course, Nigerians celebrate nurses with different achievements, different programs to create awareness, to raise the bar and let people know the essence of nurses, what nurses are, what nurses do, and why we should even celebrate nurses. Like I said, you know, internationally, May 12th is known as the International Nurses Day. It marks the revered Florence Nightingale's birthday. Of course, like I said, I'm still going to talk to you about Florence Nightingale before the end of this series. But this series, we're going to look at the stories of nurses from different parts of the world, in celebration of these nurses, because we don't really know exactly what it feels like to be a nurse. All we know is that we get to the hospital, we want nurses to take care of us. We want doctors to diagnose, to know exactly what is going on, and we expect nurses to give us an injection. We expect nurses to care for us. We expect nurses to do these things. But while doing these things, do we even understand? Are we even wearing their shoes to actually understand what it feels like to be a nurse? Okay? And most people in Nigeria have had a very sour taste of what nurses should be like. You come to Nigeria, you hear of Nurse Eliza, you hear of Quack Nurse, you hear on things that you can't begin to imagine. So, in celebration of nurses and Nursing Week, the work they do, the lives they are saving, I decided to reach out to some nurses to share their stories with us, to let us in to their world, because we don't really know exactly what it feels like to be a nurse and what their work is like, what fuels their passion, what motivates them, what moves them. Now, this story from this particular nurse is very, very emotional. Nurse Nkechi, she shares what it feels like to be a nurse, the hazard of her job, and the beauty of her job as a nurse. You need to take a listen to her, and probably you're definitely going to fall in love with this particular nurse, and definitely you will fall in love with other nurses. Now take a listen to these, and I'll return at the other side of this. Kindly stay.
Hello everyone, my name is Nkechi and I am a nurse by profession, recently practicing in the United Kingdom. I am an accident and emergency nurse, and the expectations of my job and the dangers that come with my job is that we treat acute emergencies that come in, like road traffic accidents, people that had fighting, stab wounds, and then some acute illnesses as well, mostly acute illnesses. As a nurse, what is expected of me working as an accident and emergency nurse is to be timely in everything that I do. Time for us is precious because you can lose a patient within a twinkle of an eye. I'm expected to be timely with everything I do. I'm expected to think outside the box. I'm expected to work with speed as well, because we save lives. So we work with speed, we work with time. You have to be smart to be an A&E nurse. So what I want to tell the people out there is that nursing is a noble profession. It is one profession that I pride myself to be in. It's a noble profession. It's something that I will encourage everyone to come into. And for us as nurses to be able to carry on with your job, you have to be very compassionate, you have to be outspoken, you have to be a star in communicating, because you have to communicate the need of your patient in the multidisciplinary team. And then as a nurse, you have to be kind, you have to see yourself on the other end of the table as the patient and ask yourself, what can you do if you are the one going through this? So you should be able to walk in the shoes of your patient. You should be able to defend your patient before the doctors, be able to defend the needs of the patient to the other care team, because you are the one that is directly involved with the patient. Coming to the dangers of the job. The dangers of the job is because we work hand in hand with patients, we handle bodily fluids, we handle sharps, we handle blood. So you are exposed. That's the main hazard. You are exposed to bodily fluids of deceased patients that are diseased, patients that have different infections, HIV and all sorts, and you cannot, because they have these illnesses, not treat them. You have to treat them with compassion. You have to do everything for them like you do for others, because there is no discrimination. So the job exposes us to dangers and hazards of contacting these illnesses from patients. So that is why we use all the equipment that we have, all the protective equipment, the PPEs, the glove, the mask, everything. So that's the first thing. And another hazard of the job or danger of the job is you get emotionally withdrawn, emotionally down. Sometimes when you handle some patients, you go home, you're crying because of the compassion that you have when you see these people suffer. So it can expose you to depression, it can expose you to what we call PTSD, depending on the gravity of the things that you see. Especially for us in A&E, you can have post-traumatic stress disorder from working in A&E because of the things you see every day. And another thing is burnout. You will be so burnt out emotionally, physically, mentally. You will be burnt out. And then most times when we come home, I won't say this is a hazard, it's a disadvantage. When you come home, you don't have time for your family because of the kind of job you do. You come back, you're wasted. You will not be able to attend to the needs of your family. That is a disadvantage of being in this kind of job. But I enjoy it anyways. It's fun working as an A&E nurse, and I'm proud of what I do, and I am proud to be a nurse.
Make you talk my pain away.
My goodness, who is cutting onions right now? I'm actually cutting onions. I need to clean my tears right now, because listening to Nkechi all over and over again, I mean, I was almost in tears. Yeah, imagine a situation where a nurse will lose a patient and she will not sleep. Imagine a situation where a nurse will, all those things she explained, these are the things nurses go through. So, I mean, we should actually have a rethink and treat nurses better. Even though we look forward to having more of nurses like Nurse Nkechi. You know, if we have more nurses like her, treating people, caring for people, loving people in our hospitals, believe you me, people are going to recover easily and people will be healed of whatever ailments. Because being a nurse is all about care, love, helping your patient, knowing that the hospital is not a home, right? People came to the hospital because they want care. A situation where the nurse does not give the care. But with nurses like Nkechi, definitely we can as well change the narrative in nursing profession, and we'll start seeing nurses as the great angels that they are. I'd like to say a special thank you to Nurse Nkechi for sending that voice note. And of course, like I said, this is a series. You get to hear from other nurses. You get to hear about the hazard of their job, the passion, what fuels their passion, and what it feels like to be a nurse. The essence of this podcast is to shed more light so we get to know more about nurses and the nursing profession. I look forward to seeing you in another podcast. Meanwhile, let me know your thoughts. Let me know what you think about nurses. And of course, if you can as well, wish them well. Let's hear from you. Drop your comments, share, and see you in my next podcast. I love you. Bye bye.